Omega Bump presents a game review done by thorr-axe for the game Sonic Unleashed for the PS3 and Xbox 360.
Hey, this is thorr-axe. I'm here to talk about Sonic Unleashed. Now, most of you know that the last Sonic game, which was for the PS3 and Xbox 360, was not all that great. Well, this Sonic game has changed that. Like Nintendo has done with game series such as Metroid and Mario, you see yourself switching between a sort of light and dark world, or should I say night and day, where at night Sonic changes into a werehog. Now, I know what some people might find that funny. Well, I know the were in werewolf means man. So, wouldn't it make more sense to call it a werehog or a hogwolf? I don't know. When they have Sonic in the intro fighting his longtime foe, Dr. Eggman. As Eggman goes on the run, Sonic pretty much follows him as Super Sonic, only to get trapped in some kind of cannon that drains the Chaos Emeralds of their energy. Then it fires, breaks the Earth apart, and that's pretty much what goes on in the story. But when Eggman fires off this cannon, it somehow changes Sonic into a werehog. Now, I think it's mostly due to the fact that all this dark energy that was inside the Earth that Dr. Eggman was trying to harness changed Sonic into this creature. Now, in the story, you're constantly going to be fighting this dark being, as well as Dr. Eggman. Now, in the story, you'll be fighting both those characters, but at the same time, you'll be trying to repair the planet and change yourself back to normal. And just to make things even more odd, they've added a new character by the name of Chip. Well, if you want to describe him in a short form, he's sort of like the male version of Navi, only who has a mad obsession with all things related to food. Well, let's get into the gameplay. This by far is probably the best Sonic game. For example, when you play as Sonic, it switches between 3D and 2D gameplay elements. And I find that it stays more 2D a good chunk of the time, so really it plays a lot like the older Sonic games, and this one's really good. Gets really good. Where when you're playing as Sonic the Werewolf, it plays a lot like a kid-friendly version of God of War. I swear, it even goes down to, like, basically the, QuickTime events, like, to that detail. It's that much close to God of War. The only real difference is there's no crazy spells or weapon changes. You basically just got your crazy whip-like arms. And your speed, obviously, like Sonic. Now, the sound for the game wasn't too bad. I actually liked the music. Now mind, some of the dialogue could have used a bit of work, but it was still pretty good. One other thing I liked about this game was the fact that if you were playing this on the PS3, you could actually input your own music into the game by just simply hitting the home button and selecting your music files. Now, I know most 360 games, you can do this with pretty much any 360 game. Well, most PS3 games, you can't really do that. Now, I actually like that feature, because the thing is, I found that on some levels where I didn't like the music, I was switching to my frickin' Marilyn Manson CD to wheeze my way through the level, which for some reason I found that CD actually worked a little better to the level. Alright, well, the graphics weren't too bad either. They were a little more cartoony this time around, which personally I liked. I didn't really like that whole realistic-looking Eggman they did in the last game. It was just kind of weird-looking. And some of the characters actually look kind of cute. Now, for my final score in this Sonic game, as well as my thoughts and opinions on what they could have done to make this game better. Now, obviously, one thing I found they could have done to make this game a lot better was maybe included a multiplayer mode like they've done in the previous Sonic games, but that can be kind of overlooked. I mean, it didn't really need the multiplayer mode, but I felt it could have been a little better with the multiplayer mode, but again, wasn't necessary. Some people found this a bit of a pain, but I don't see why. Like, it's not that big of a deal. Now, another thing that I didn't like about this game was the fact that some of the missions where you were playing as Sonic the Werehog were a little repetitive. So you kind of found yourself doing a lot of running, grabbing a key, going back down to the door, and there was just way too much backtracking in some of the levels. So it kind of got a little repetitive. Plus, some of the levels had a very steep difficulty curve difference from the previous levels. So, for example, you could play in one level, it's incredibly easy, where the next level after that could be so difficult you find yourself literally beating your head against your wall. That's another thing I didn't like too much. Alright, now as for my final score. I give this game an overall score of 9.3. Alright. Now that was it for my game review, and I am signing off.